They say the woods whisper secrets at night. They say one can hear things, see things that defy explanation. Elias used to laugh at those stories. He was a hunter, a man of logic and steel. But that night, deep in the Blackwood Forest, he learned that some whispers are meant to be heard. And some things are meant to be seen only once. Because once they are seen, they see you back, and they don't forget. Elias. For years, hog hunting was more than a hobby. It was a passion, a primal dance between man and beast. He prided himself on his skill, his patience, his ability to read the forest like an open book. But he was a traditionalist, a daylight hunter. The thought of stalking through the inky blackness, relying on technology rather than instinct, always felt wrong. Until the reports started coming in. The hog population in the Blackwood Forest was exploding, becoming a menace to local farms. Night hunting, with its promise of a more challenging pursuit and a greater impact on the numbers, became a necessity. So he invested in the best night vision scope money could buy, a sleek green-tinted marvel that promised to turn night into a hazy monochrome day. The chosen night was moonless, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. He drove his old pickup as far as the logging trail would allow, the silence of the forest pressing in as soon as he killed the engine. The familiar weight of his rifle in his hands was a comfort, a promise of control. He slipped into the woods, the night vision scope already mounted, its eerie green glow painting the familiar trees in an alien light. His plan was simple: find a good vantage point, wait for the hogs to emerge from their wallows, and thin the herd. He found a sturdy oak, its rough bark a familiar anchor against his back. He settled in, rifle raised, scanning the silent, green-tinged landscape before him. The only sounds were the distant chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves in a barely there breeze. The hunt was on. Minutes stretched into an hour, then two. His eyes, accustomed to the green glow of the scope, meticulously swept the undergrowth. Nothing. No telltale rustle, no dark shapes moving through the trees. The forest was eerily still, almost holding its breath. A hunter knows when to move. Sticking to a barren spot is a fool's game. He quietly unshouldered his rifle, his movements practiced and silent, and began to move deeper into the woods, searching for a more promising location. He found another tree, a gnarled old cedar, its branches providing a natural blind. He settled in again, raising the scope to his eye, and resumed his patient vigil. It wasn't long before he saw it. A flicker of movement deep within the shadows. His heart gave a familiar lurch, the thrill of the hunt. Jackpot, first target. He adjusted the focus, bringing the shape into sharper relief. But as it drew closer, his hunter's instinct, honed over decades, screamed that something was wrong. This wasn't a hog. It was too tall, too slender, and its movements unnatural. It was on all fours, yes, but it moved with a disjointed, almost broken rhythm, like a marionette with tangled strings. It was vaguely humanoid, but twisted, elongated. It moved with a disturbing fluidity, a grotesque ballet of limbs. His breath hitched. This wasn't prey. This was something else. He kept watching, mesmerized by the horrifying spectacle, his finger hovering over the safety. It was moving away from him, deeper into the forest, and he found himself following its strange, loping gait through the scope, a morbid curiosity overriding his fear. Then it stopped, and his blood ran cold. It had stopped precisely where he had been sitting, by the first oak tree. It stood there for a few agonizing seconds, its back to him, its strange form silhouetted against the green-tinged darkness. And then, with a sudden jerky motion that made his stomach clench, it turned, abruptly, directly towards him, as if it knew, as if it had known all along. His mind raced, trying to rationalize. No way. It couldn't see him, not through the dense foliage, not in this darkness, not with his camouflage. But then it started to move, slowly at first, a deliberate predatory crawl directly in his direction. Through the night vision scope, its features became sickeningly clear. Its eyes, huge and black, bulged from its skull as if they would pop out, reflecting the green light of his scope with an unnatural intensity. Its mouth was opened too wide, a gaping maw, revealing a long, black tongue that lolled out, glistening with drool. A low, guttural gurgle emanated from its throat, a sound that was both wet and dry, like something ancient and starving. Fear, cold and absolute, began to take hold, a paralyzing grip that tightened around his chest. But he couldn't look away. He was a deer in headlights, caught in the terrifying gaze of a predator that shouldn't exist. And then it broke into a run, a terrifying, unnatural sprint, all limbs flailing yet impossibly fast, directly at him. He reacted on instinct, raising his rifle and firing a warning shot, the crack echoing through the silent woods. It wasn't meant to hit. It was meant to scare, to make it flee. But it didn't. It merely dodged to the side, a blur of motion, and then, in a single fluid movement, it turned its head, its grotesque face fixed on him, its bulging eyes burning with an intelligence that chilled him to the bone. It was as if it had... His car, his only hope. He remembered the direction, a faint beacon of safety in the overwhelming darkness. Each step was a prayer, each breath a gasp. The sounds behind him grew louder, closer. He could almost feel its hot, fetid breath on his neck. He risked a glance over his shoulder, the green-tinged world a kaleidoscope of terror. It was there, a few yards behind him, its grotesque face contorted in what he could only describe as a predatory grin, those bulging red eyes fixed on him with an unnerving intensity. Its tongue still lolled, a dark wet ribbon against its pale, stretched skin. It was faster than anything he had ever encountered, a nightmare given flesh. He pushed harder, his lungs burning, his legs screaming in protest. The car, it had to be close. He could almost taste the freedom, the safety of metal and glass. Then through the trees he saw it, the faint outline of his pickup truck, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. He burst out of the tree line, scrambling across a small clearing, fumbling for his keys. His hands trembled, but he forced them to cooperate, jamming the key into the lock, yanking the door open. He threw himself inside, slamming the door shut, the click of the lock a fragile barrier against the horror outside. He didn't even bother with the seatbelt. His hands flew to the ignition, the engine roaring to life, a symphony of salvation. He slammed the truck in reverse, tires spitting gravel, and then into drive, tearing away from the forest, leaving his hunting rifle, his pride, and the unspeakable creature behind. The last thing he saw in his rearview mirror, before the forest swallowed it whole, was a pair of glowing red eyes watching him go. And he knew, with a chilling certainty, that it wouldn't forget. Elias drove. He drove until the green glow of the night vision scope faded from his eyes, until the image of that grotesque face was no longer burned into his retinas. He drove until the sun began to paint the eastern sky with hues of orange and pink, a stark contrast to the terror of the night. He pulled into his driveway, the truck still reeking of fear and damp earth. His hands were shaking so violently he could barely turn the key in the ignition. He stumbled into his house, collapsing onto the couch, the silence of his home a welcome yet unsettling balm. He tried to tell his friends. He called Mark, his hunting buddy, the one who'd seen him at his most stoic, his most unflappable. He recounted every detail, the unnatural movements, the bulging eyes, the drooling tongue, the way it dodged his warning shot. Mark listened patiently, his silence growing heavier with each word. When Elias finished, there was a long pause. "Elias," Mark said, his voice gentle, almost pitying, "you must have been exhausted. Night hunting can play tricks on your mind. Maybe it was a bear or a coyote, distorted by the scope." He didn't believe him. None of them did. They nodded, they offered sympathetic glances, but their eyes held a clear, undeniable skepticism. Elias was the hunter who had seen a ghost, and they saw only a man who had cracked under pressure. Against their advice, against his own better judgment, Elias went back the next morning. He couldn't leave his rifle out there. It was a part of him, a symbol of his identity. Mark and two other friends, armed with their own rifles and a healthy dose of skepticism, reluctantly accompanied him. The forest, in the harsh light of day, seemed ordinary, almost benign. The trees stood tall and silent, the undergrowth thick and green. There was no sign of the creature, no disturbed earth, no broken branches. They searched for hours, meticulously combing the area around the first oak tree, then the cedar. Nothing. No rifle. No tracks. Just the quiet, indifferent woods. Just as Elias was about to give up, his foot kicked something. Buried in the leaf litter, glinting faintly in the sunlight, was his night vision scope. Only the scope. His rifle, his trusted companion, was gone. And as he picked up the scope, a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air ran down his spine. He looked around, a sudden overwhelming sense of being watched washing over him. The trees seemed to lean in, the shadows deepen. He felt it then, the same chilling presence he had felt in the dead of night. It was still there, watching, waiting, and he knew with a terrifying certainty that it hadn't forgotten him. It had marked him, and it was only a matter of time before it came to collect. Have you ever encountered something in the wilderness that defied explanation? Something that changed you forever? Share your stories in the comments below. And remember, when you venture into the dark, sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't what you're hunting, but what's hunting you.